Few devices sum up the blend of science, sorcery, and the sheer inhuman ingenuity of the Skaven than the infernal war engine known as the Doomwheel. The Doomwheel whirs quickly across the battlefield, unleashing powerful warp lightning bolts that blast those nearby to shriveled blackness, as the great iron-reinforced wheel crushes all in its path. This box set, The Doomwheel has to be one of my favorite models from the Skaven range. It might not be the largest war machine that the Skaven have, but it's definitely one of the most iconic.
So for this build, I want to double down on the fact that this is a war machine built by Clan Skryre. At the front, I'll be replacing the warp conduits with warp grinders from the Stormfiend's kit. I think they look more dynamic and dangerous as the Doomwheel's main weapon. I'll also be adding additional supports to the warp conduits on the side, integrating additional gears and pistons to act as a drive function, replacing the rats in the bottom. As much as those little guys are fun and thematic, I want my Super Skryre Doomwheel to be powered entirely by warp energy. This lonely little boiler at the back doesn't feel like enough, so I'm going to add a large warpstone furnace to power the machine.
So to start, I'm going to remove the boiler and a few other pieces that are going to get in the way of some of the upgrades. Then, using some pieces of bent plasticard, I'm going to extend the wide part of the rear chassis upwards. And since I had the glue out, I decided to upgrade the weapons at the front as well. Jumping back to the back, I decided to make the rear platform quite a bit bigger, so I'm using another platform from, I believe I got it from the Screaming Bell kit, but I'm not entirely sure. So I cut that in half and then glued that into place and reattached some of the support structures from before. To replace the tiny support wheel at the back, I'm going to be using the wheels from the old pewter Warp Lightning Cannon kit. Now, I do have two of these kits, one of which is built and painted up on my shelf, so I don't feel too bad about using this one for this build, and I'm going to use the rest of the cannon for this build as well, so I'm using the whole thing. I am now cutting down the cannon part of the Warp Lightning Cannon in order to turn it into a warp furnace that will be the power source for my Doomwheel. So of course, cutting through pewter is a lot harder than cutting through plastic, so I'm using a Dremel tool. If you're planning to do the same, make sure you wear an appropriate mask as you don't want to breathe in any of the metal dust. And once you're done, you should file down the cut sections to get rid of any sharp areas. And as it is a fair chunk of pewter, I've thrown together this makeshift support system to hold it up as I glue it into place. And at the same time, I'll super glue the pewter wheels into place. After waiting a bit for the glue to dry, now I'm removing the flag support from the back of the chassis. Although it is a very cool looking bit, I'm not going to use the flag in this build because it'll get in the way of the warp furnace at the back. And by removing it, I can move the boiler further up the rear chassis. Now, in addition to the warp furnace and the boiler, I decided to make a new device that will make the warp energy system look more complex and visually interesting. The main bit I'm using is something from the Caradron Overlords, as well as a couple of shoulder pads and other greeblies from a 40k kit. Now, because I'm not using the flag, I feel like the top could still use some decoration, so I'm adding this spiky crest from the Chaos Juggernaut kit. It looks a lot like the spiky crests on Stormvermin or Warlords, so I think it suits a Skaven war machine quite well. After that, I just glue on a couple of pipes and mechanical looking greeblies, as well as a few finishing touches for the rear platform. Another questionable design choice by the Skaven is to have the periscope come out the side of the wheel rather than through the middle. So instead, I'm going to integrate the periscope into the central chassis and have it come out between the two wheels at the front. Next, after gluing on the final piece of the Warp Lightning Cannon as a chimney for the warp furnace, I'll be upgrading these small gears that hold the wheels in place to larger gears that will be part of the drive system that brings power to the wheel. So basically, I've based my propulsion system off of a steam train, where the warp technology is pushing a drive rod back and forth, which turns a crank, which turns the gear, which turns the wheels. So, the next component is the equivalent of a steam chest. So I'm using the suspension from the old rear wheel, as well as different thicknesses of plasticard, a plasticard tube, and a coffee stir stick. I think the spring from the suspension works well as an electric coil, so I'm looking to make the rough appearance of an electric motor that could push the drive rod back and forth. And yes, I put way too much thought into this. Now, I'm going to mount these motors on the inside of the war projectors on the side of the Doomwheel. However, as I mentioned before, these bits are only connected to the Doomwheel at the front and don't look very strong. So, I'm going to use some strips of plastic card to connect it to the back as well. Now, as these cover the sides of the Doomwheel, I'm not going to glue them into place just yet. It'll make it a lot harder to paint if these are stuck in place. Also, I think they're looking a little plain, so here I'm carefully removing the runes from the archway of the Screaming Bell kit, and then I'm going to glue those onto the support beams to give them some character. This kind of technique can be a little bit dangerous though. It's very easy to slip and cut yourself, so if you're going to try the same thing, take it slow and be extra careful. And now that those are done, those are the final components, so I'm going to take these and paint them off camera. I think my paint jobs are decent, but they're definitely nothing special, so I decided to skip them for this video. If you would like to see my painting process, leave a comment under this video and I'll make sure to include it in my future videos. So as I'm assembling everything, I'm making sure the teeth of the gears fit into the teeth on the wheels, and I'm making sure to align everything carefully to make sure that the motors and their pistons line up with the cranks. And lastly, I glue down the engineer to the rear platform and hook up his bellows to the furnace using some wire guitar string. Now, we're not done just yet. For the base, I want to sell the idea that this is a heavy and fast-moving war machine. I've marked an area using painter's tape, which is where the Doomwheel will sit on the base, so underneath it will be the tracks that it's leaving behind. I start by gluing down some greeblies that I think will give the base a bit more character, and then I put down some white glue, onto which I'll sprinkle some small rocks to create some terrain. And as that's drying, I decided to peel off the green tape and put a bit more down the middle, as the Doomwheel has two wheels, so it would leave a narrow strip of ground that is untouched between them. Once the glue is dry, I give it a once over with some black spray paint, and it's not looking like much just yet, but now we're going to break out the Mod Podge. So off camera, I mixed together some Mod Podge, brown paint, and a bit of sand to give it some texture, and I'm going to apply that all over the base. And while it's still wet, I'm going to sprinkle on some green flocking material to create some grass. And once that was dry, I painted up the greeblies that I glued down before, including giving the stone waymarker for the city of Nuln a wash of Nuln oil. Fun times. After that, I just paint the edges black, and it's looking pretty good. However, at this point I realized the ground was looking pretty muddy, so I should probably apply some of that mud to the wheel itself. So now that it's looking nice and dirty, it's time to glue it down and call this done.
Thanks for watching the video. I'm still getting the hang of filming, voice recording, and editing, so if you've got any tips on how I can improve, let me know in the comments. I also want to know what you want me to do next, so if you want to see more Skaven, 40k, Trench Crusade, kit bashing, anime dioramas, or anything else, let me know. And of course, if you want to see more, like, subscribe, and ring that bell. See you next time.